This right here is a 2023 Mercedes-Benz EQE 350 4MATIC all-electric luxury sedan, and in this video we are going to take an in-depth look at this car's interior and technology. Mixing things up, we'll start at the trunk, jump into the back seat, and then finish up in the front to see all of the great features offered in this Mercedes-Benz. Now, you can basically think of the EQE as an all-electric version of the venerable E-Class. The two cars are very similar in size, though the EQE here does have some advantages in both trunk and interior space, which we will get to in just a minute. As for the design, you can see this car is incredibly sleek, very slippery looking with a laid-back windshield and smooth flanks. As for the wheelbase, it's a very long 128 inches and change, which makes it about 7.1 inches greater than a comparable E-Class's wheelbase. So to access this vehicle's trunk, it is very easy and quite an elegant solution. You just push right here on the Mercedes-Benz star and the deck lid motors on up just like that. Very slick, and of course that reveals a surprisingly generous amount of room. There's about 430 liters of space, roughly 15.2 cubic feet of storage volume here in the EQE, which is a couple cubes more than you get in a comparable E-Class, so hooray for the all-electric EQE. Beyond that, you also get a little bit more storage underneath the floor. You can see we have a tire inflator kit. There's a fairly deep well, and then of course a tie down should you have a really bad day out on the road, but hopefully that's not going to happen. As for the dimensions of this space, it's roughly 35 inches wide from wheel well to wheel well, about 40 inches deep, and round about 21 inches high with a liftover of about 32 inches to load up your cargo just like that. But if you need more space than that, of course, those rear backrests do fold down, and this is super clever. I love this feature. A lot of other cars, you've got levers or straps that you pull on to fold those backrests down, but not the EQE, because they have put buttons right up here on the lip of the trunk lid. So you push one, the backrest folds, and you can, of course, the backrest is split, so you push it again, the other side drops just like that. How easy is that? Love that feature. Moving along, join me here to the side of the car. Of course, to access the back seat, we have exterior door handles, and of course these do retract for better aerodynamics and a sleeker look, but these look like a traditional pull style handle, so you kind of walk up to the car and expect to yank on them, but no, don't do that. There are actually E-latches in here, so all you have to do is just gently pull on the handle like that, which reveals, unusually for a sedan, frameless windows. You don't see that too often on traditional sedans. It does provide a sleek look, though I always feel these are a little bit more fragile than other solutions. But come on, let's check out the back seat. But did it suddenly get a lot shadier out? That's weird. Must be a new Mercedes-Benz feature or something. But anyway, before we can check out this seat, I have to raise the backrests, which are quite heavy because the springs in here are pretty stiff. But anyway, once those are up and the door is closed, you are treated to a surprisingly roomy and very comfortable back seat in the EQE. With the driver's seat adjusted where I want it for driving, I've got, 3-4 inches of legroom to spare here, so plenty of stretch out space, though I will say the headroom is a little bit tight. My coiffure, it's kissing the shade here, and my noggin does hit the side if I lean my head over just like that. So plenty of legroom, a little bit more headroom would be nice. Of course, this car does have a nearly flat floor, which is fantastic if you are relegated to the middle position, but if nobody is riding here, we naturally have a fold down armrest that I've got to say is just about ideal because it's level with the armrest on the door panel. That's very important for long-term comfort. You don't want to be sitting like this or like this when you're out on a road trip. That can be fatiguing. Also, you pop it like this, you get a pair of cup holders, complicated looking things, but a great place, of course, to store your beverages so they don't spill everywhere and potentially ruin this lovely light gray material. At the back of the center console, we do have a pair of air vents, so you can stay cool or warm as required, though this car is not fitted with the optional 4-zone climate control system, which would give you some extra controls right here on the console. That's why there's a giant empty space. You didn't spend the extra $760. Beyond that, we have a fold-down panel with a pair of USB Type-C ports, so you can keep your device charged, provided you remembered to bring a cable. So don't forget to do that. Anyway, not a bad place to spend time in the back of this Mercedes-Benz, but let's hop up front and check out some of this car's tech, which is very easy to do because these door openings are actually surprisingly wide and simple to get through. So, overall, the interior of this car is exceptionally nice, as it should be for something costing more than $90,000, which is what this particular EQE sticker's for. Though be warned, it is not hard to push a 350 4MATIC model past the six-figure mark if you start going crazy with options. As for materials, they are, for the most part, fantastic in this vehicle, especially the MB-Tex artificial leather that looks good and feels even better. The color combo we have in this car is called Neva Gray and Sable Brown, and overall I think it looks pretty good. But it's not all perfect because there are a couple things in this cabin that I do not care for, and one of them is right here on the dashboard. This optional $540 trim is basically just a slab of shiny plastic, and that's definitely not worth it. I would much rather have some of the traditional wood furnishings that are available in the EQE. Beyond that, there's special black trim here on the center console. This is essentially a piano black with some matte dots on it. It's much nicer than conventional piano black, which shows every fingerprint, scuff, and scratch, but this is $300 extra, and honestly, yeah, don't get it. It's just not worth $300 for slightly different trim right in this area. Save your money. When it's time to hit the road, the start button is right here on the dashboard where it is easy to see and reach. They've also added this sort of knurled ring around the outside. It looks like something you could turn, but it does not move, but it looks nice. Great placement for that button. The air vents on the outboard ends of the dashboard are round, and they are a bit fiddly to adjust, but they feel super expensive, like a well-oiled machine. I like those a lot. And then, of course, we have the traditional Mercedes-Benz control stalks. Gear selector is here on the right, and then wipers and high beams are over here. Now, personally, I would prefer to have either a push-button shifter or a control knob so that the shifter is not up here on the column, so you can have a separate control stalk just for the wipers. That's my preference. However, this system does work perfectly fine as it is. When it comes to tech, there is plenty to talk about, and right in front of the driver, as you can see, is a beautiful 12.3-inch digital instrument cluster. It's dead simple to cycle through various menus on here, or even change the theme. You do that, of course, using these touch buttons on the steering wheel spokes. And I've got to say, in the EQE, these work fantastically well. They respond immediately and basically do exactly what you tell them to. Unlike other recent Mercedes-Benz vehicles that I've reviewed, these touch buttons were horrible. These are much better. Anyway, you can cycle through various screens here, or you hit the home button, you can change the overall theme. Let's say you're driving somewhere, you don't know exactly where you're going, you might want navigation brought up. Pressing home again, we can go to the, let's swipe over here, there's the understated view, but I think for the EQE, it is a Mercedes-Benz, arguably the most traditional automaker around. I think the classic view is most appropriate for this vehicle. Anyway, turning our attention to the center of the dashboard, it is impossible to ignore this. It is a 12.8-inch portrait-style OLED touchscreen that is home to an MBUX infotainment system. Now, this multimedia array works fantastically well. It is incredibly responsive, and I've got to say this system is very easy to learn despite offering loads of functionality. You can pretty much just jump into this car and within a couple minutes you'll figure most of the functions out, which is not something I can say about competing systems like BMW iDrive. They have much steeper learning curves than this. Another example of simplicity is that it's very easy to pair your phone with this multimedia array. Just tap the home button like that, hit phone. Obviously my device is already paired here, but if a phone was not paired, it would prompt you to do it right there. Super easy, and it takes like 10 seconds to do. Beyond that, wireless Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay are both supported by MBUX, which is fantastic. And if you want to access CarPlay, it's very easy. There's a persistent button here at the top left of the screen. You can tap that, which brings up CarPlay, or if you're on the home screen, you can tap the home button once more, swipe over, and of course there is a CarPlay button for you right there. Again, super easy to get to. Beyond that, we have a wireless charger inside here, the center console. Just like that, you can keep your device juiced up on the go, though we also have a pair of USB ports in here, 2 at the front and 2 at the back of the center console. So as long as you've got a cable, you can keep your phone fully juiced. Another example of what makes MBUX very easy to use is something called the zero layer. Basically, persistent controls that are on the screen. So if I move away like this on the map, you can see those buttons have gone away, but if I recenter, they pop right back. So I have immediate access to music playback or my paired phone. Though those will change, there's AI in the system that will try to anticipate your needs. Overall, it works pretty well. Of course, we also have persistent climate controls at the bottom of the display, so you can adjust your fan speed or temperature without having to dig through 4 or 5 different menus, which is fantastic. There's a row of touch buttons here just below the main display screen, and these handle things like your drive mode settings, so we're going to leave it in comfort. You can access the EQ menu as well. We'll get to that in just a second. There's also a volume slider, which works very well, just like the controls on the steering wheel. Super responsive, does exactly what it's supposed to, though this bar is a little bit flimsy. Maybe that could be sturdier, but the functionality fundamentally is pretty good with this system. As for the EQ mode, again, you can get to that from down here, or there's a persistent button on the screen. You tap that, it brings up various functions here. We can find charging stations, parking spots, restaurants. We can check on the range. And, of course, if you want to limit your charging, let's say to preserve battery life in normal use, you don't want it to go past 80%, you can do that very easily using a slider here, just like that. Again, super easy to get to right from the home screen. Of course, voice control is an option as well. You can ask the car about weather, what the range is if you can't read the screen or something, a bunch of stuff like that. And of course, you can get turn-by-turn directions. So you just say the magic words, "Hey Mercedes,
how may I help you?
Get me directions to Copper Harbor." And she's going to do her thing right now, calculating, thinking.
Starting route guidance to Copper Harbor,
there we
Michigan.
go. Copper.
900 feet, turn left onto Estate Drive.
I appreciate that. Copper Harbor's at the top of the Upper Peninsula, and it's way up here, basically as far as you can drive in the state of Michigan. But we've got the turn-by-turn directions in the system right now, but you can see it said route optimization. Basically what it was doing is adding charging stops along the way. How cool is that? You can swipe through them just like that very easily. But let's say you hate the folks at the Meijer in Gaylord. You can X right out of that charging stop just like that. Yes, remove it, and it'll recalculate again. And she'll recalculate to get you back to Copper Harbor without having to visit those folks at the Meijer. The EQE is supposed to have the MBUX Hyperscreen, which we see in other Mercedes-Benz models. If you remember, it's that sort of door-to-door glass display that covers the entire dashboard. But a company rep told me, at least in the US, it's not going to be offered for the 2023 model year, which I say is A-OK, because having 2 separate screens, I honestly think looks better and probably works better as well. The Hyperscreen, if you remember, runs across the entire dashboard, and it incorporates 3 separate displays. But you can see the edge of each of those screens, so the effect is kind of ruined, and honestly, I like this a lot more. So this car's back seat is very comfortable, and the front buckets are as well. These are soft but supportive, and I think you'd be okay in these seats for many hours at a stretch. In traditional Mercedes-Benz form, the controls to adjust the front buckets are right here on the door panels, where you can see them and very easily reach them. And I think that's kind of a theme with this vehicle. Ease of use, which is something I am 100% in favor of. Beyond that, the EQE comes standard with heated front bucket seats, though if you want ventilation, that's going to be an additional $450. If you want massage functionality in these chairs, it's $1,100, and if you want a heated steering wheel, depending on the trim, it's $250 additional dollars. They just love charging you for every little extra. That's not a complaint exclusive to Mercedes-Benz, though they are guilty of doing it. And one thing of note when you're behind the wheel, the center tunnel here that flows into the console is absolutely gargantuan. And I don't know why, but it really intrudes on the accelerator pedal. So if you're a person that likes to really sprawl while driving, this might not be a car for you. It does get good airflow, though. Huh. I'll have to try that. Now, if you suffer from allergies like I do, the EQE can help you breathe just a little bit easier because the HVAC system is available with HEPA filtration, which can cut down on dust and pollen, keep all of that nasty stuff from getting into the cabin, and it even will give you a report on the air quality. It's both good inside and outside right now, so that's great to have. This will even precondition the air inside the vehicle so it's nice and clean before you go out for a drive. And I imagine this HEPA filter We'll even take care of fart smells, so if your friend or significant other goes a bit crazy at the Mexican restaurant, you don't have to worry. The EQE has you covered. So, from a tech and interior standpoint, the 2023 Mercedes-Benz EQE 350 4MATIC is pretty fantastic. This cabin is beautifully built, it's very comfortable, and the car offers loads of amenities, though annoyingly you do have to pay extra for some of those features. Still, at $90,305 out the door, this particular example easily feels like it's worth the asking price. Next up, check out my full review of this all-electric Mercedes-Benz by clicking right over here. In this feature, I cover the range, driving dynamics, charging performance, and a whole lot more, so make sure you watch that video next.